Thanksgiving in Maplewood was always the same. Streets lined with faded flags, the smell of wood smoke in the air, and every diner packed with families pretending they didn't all gossip about each other the rest of the year. For me, it usually meant dinner at my aunt's house, crowded rooms, football on TV, kids running around until someone cried. This year was different. This year, I had Grace. Mom invited the Whitmores over, and Grace and her mom actually said yes. I'd been nervous about it all week. Mom adored Grace, but Aunt Linda, not so much. Linda was the type who thought Maplewood was the center of the universe, and anyone who dared leave it was a fool. Sure enough, halfway through dinner, it started. So, Grace, Aunt Linda said, cutting into her turkey, how are you adjusting to our little town? Big change from Chicago, I'd bet. Grace smiled politely. It's quieter, for sure. Different pace. But I like it. Different pace, Linda repeated, nodding. That's our way here. Solid, steady. None of that running around like in those big cities. I felt Grace stiffen beside me. Sometimes steady can feel a little stifling, she said carefully. Linda's eyebrows shot up. Stifling? Grace flushed, but pressed on. I just mean, it's hard, coming from somewhere that always feels alive. And then, she trailed off, glancing at me. Linda snorted. Well, if you ask me, too much alive is why people end up miserable. Folks here know how to stick it out. Build something real. The table went awkwardly quiet. Grace picked at her plate, and I caught her hand under the table, squeezing it. But her smile didn't return that night. After dinner, as we walked home in the crisp night air, she was quiet. Finally, I asked, you okay? She stopped, looking at me with a mix of frustration and sadness. Do you really see yourself here forever? Doing the same jobs, eating at the same diners, listening to the same people? Is that enough for you? The question hit me like a punch. I don't know, I admitted. It's not perfect, but it's home. My mom's here. My whole life's here. Her voice cracked just a little. But what about your dreams? Don't you want more? Grace, not everyone can just pack up and leave. Some of us have responsibilities. That was the wrong thing to say. I knew it the second the words left my mouth. She pulled back, her face hardening. So I'm irresponsible for wanting more? For not wanting to spend my whole life in a town that doesn't even want me? That's not what I meant. Yes, it is, she snapped, then turned away, walking faster toward her house. I stood there in the cold, my breath fogging in the air, feeling like I'd just let something break between us so we didn't talk for 3 days. In Maplewood, 3 days was an eternity. People noticed. Jake asked me at work if we were fighting. Mom gave me that knowing look when I came home quiet. Even Mrs. Duffy at the post office asked if Grace was still around. Finally, on the 4th day, I showed up at her porch with a half-wilted bouquet of gas station flowers. She opened the door, eyes tired but softening when she saw me. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. I don't want to lose what we have. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped aside and let me in. We sat on the couch, the silence heavy. Finally, she whispered, I don't want to lose it either. But I also can't pretend I don't want more than this town. I pulled her into my arms, holding her as tightly as I could, as if sheer force could keep her from slipping away. In that moment, we forgave each other. But deep down, I knew forgiveness didn't erase the truth. We were on 2 different paths, and I didn't know how long they'd keep crossing. Snow came early that year. By the first week of December, Maplewood was blanketed in white. The streets looked softer, quieter, almost like the town had been paused under a layer of silence. Grace loved it. She ran outside during the first real snowfall, spinning in the middle of Main Street with her arms wide, her laughter echoing through the night. I stood on the sidewalk, watching her, my breath catching in my chest. You coming, Ethan? She shouted, snowflakes clinging to her dark hair. I shook my head with a grin. You're crazy. She bent down, scooped up a handful of snow, and nailed me square in the chest. Fine, I muttered, wading out into the street. You asked for it. 10 minutes later, we were both soaked and out of breath, collapsed on the hood of my truck. Her cheeks were red, her eyes bright, and when she leaned over to kiss me, I thought, maybe this is enough. Maybe we can make this work. Christmas in Maplewood wasn't much. A tree in the square, a string of lights on the old diner, carolers going door to door whether you wanted them or not. But with Grace, it felt magical. She insisted on dragging me to every small-town event, the craft fair at the high school gym, the gingerbread contest at the library, even the tree lighting ceremony where the mayor's speech ran longer than the electricity powering the lights. At one point, standing with her mittened hand in mine, I realized I wasn't watching the tree at all. I was watching her. Christmas Eve, I gave her my gift. It wasn't much, just a necklace I'd found in a pawn shop, silver with a tiny star-shaped charm. It's not new, I said awkwardly, pressing the box into her hand. But when I saw it, it reminded me of you. She opened it, and her eyes filled with tears. Ethan, she reached up, kissed me, and whispered, "It's perfect." Her gift to me was a journal. Leather-bound, with my initials embossed on the cover. "I want you to write," she said softly. "All the things you're too scared to say out loud." I laughed, embarrassed. "You think I'm a writer?" "I know you are," she said, her gaze steady. That night, lying on the couch with her curled against me, I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd found our rhythm again. But New Year's Eve cracked the illusion. She wanted to go into Columbus for a party some college friends were throwing. Music, people, life, the kind of scene that lit her up from the inside. Me? I wanted to stay in Maplewood. Watch the ball drop on TV. Drink a couple beers with Jake at the diner. Simple. We argued about it in the truck. "You never want to leave this town," she said, her voice sharp. "Don't you ever feel like you're missing something?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "I've got everything I need right here." She groaned, pressing her forehead to the window. "You don't get it, Ethan. You just don't get it. We didn't go to the party. We didn't go to Jake's, either. Instead, we sat in silence on my porch, listening to distant fireworks. When midnight came, she kissed me. But her lips tasted of something bittersweet, like goodbye. January was colder. Not just the weather, us, too. We still saw each other. Still laughed sometimes, still kissed, still held hands. But there was a tension running beneath it all, like a fault line waiting to split. Every time she talked about the future, I went quiet. Every time I talked about the present, she pulled away, and deep down, I knew winter was only buying us time. The first time I opened the journal, I stared at the blank page for nearly half an hour. My hand hovered over it like I was about to confess something illegal, but Grace's voice lingered in my head. "Write all the things you're too scared to say out loud." So I wrote, January 8, "I don't know why you're with me. You could have anyone. Someone smarter, someone who dreams bigger. But you chose me. And I'm terrified you'll wake up one morning and realize it was a mistake." January 12. "Today you talked about traveling, Paris, London, even New York." I nodded like I was listening, but all I could think about was how far away those places are. How easy it would be to lose you to a city that actually fits you. Maplewood doesn't deserve you. Neither do I. At January 20, "I wish I could give you more. But all I have is me. And I'm scared that's not enough." The more I wrote, the more honest I became, at least with myself. I never showed her the entries. I couldn't. The words felt too raw, too much like bleeding on paper, but every time I saw her wearing that necklace, every time she smiled at me like I was the only thing holding her together, I wondered if I should. One Saturday, we drove out past Miller's Creek, into the back roads where the snow was piled so high it looked like the world had been erased. Grace leaned her head against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "You ever think about what it'd be like to just leave?" she asked suddenly. I swallowed. "Leave where?" "Here. Maplewood. Just get in the truck and drive until we hit somewhere new. Start over." I laughed nervously. "Sounds reckless." Her eyes flicked to me. "Sometimes reckless is the only way to live." I wanted to tell her yes. That I'd follow her anywhere. That I'd trade everything I knew just to keep her. But the words stuck in my throat. "Instead," I said, "maybe someday." She looked back out the window, and I felt the distance grow between us, like a mile of snow-covered road stretching out endlessly. At night, lying in bed, I reread the things I'd written. The ink smudged from my hand, the pages crumpled where I'd gripped too hard. I thought about giving her the journal, letting her see my heart stripped bare. But then I imagined her eyes filling with pity instead of love. So I kept it hidden, because if words could save us, I wasn't sure mine were strong enough. February was coming. And with it, choices neither of us were ready to face. Valentine's Day in Maplewood wasn't much. A few heart-shaped wreaths at Marley's Market, the diner offering specials with paper hearts stuck to the windows. But Grace made it feel like a holiday worth celebrating. She had a way of turning the simplest things into moments that mattered. "I made us cookies," she said, holding up a small tin. "Chocolate chip, my favorite. You baked?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She grinned. "Don't act surprised. I can do more than scribble in a notebook." We sat on the porch swing, the tin between us. I offered her one. She took it, laughing when I tried to feed her the second bite later. She pulled a scarf around my neck and tugged me outside. The snow had turned the street into a quiet, glowing path. "I wanted to show you something," she said. She led me down to the frozen pond at the edge of town. "We can skate. Barely anyone comes out here." I hadn't skated since I was a kid. But seeing her step onto the ice, balanced and sure, I couldn't resist. "Watch me," she called. And she glided across the ice, laughing, and for a moment, I forgot everything else, the world, the town, the future. When I joined her, she grabbed my hand, steadying me, her warmth against the cold biting February air. Afterward, we sat at the edge of the pond, our feet dangling over the ice. She leaned against me, and I felt her heartbeat against my chest. "Ethan," she said softly, "do you ever think we're holding on to each other because we're afraid to be alone?" The words struck me. I didn't answer at first. "I do," she whispered. "Sometimes I wonder if I'd leave tomorrow if I could. Just go. Start over somewhere new." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. "I don't want you to go," I admitted. "Not now, not ever. But I don't know how to keep you here if you need more than this town can give you." Her hand slid into mine, fingers curling tightly. "Then we figure it out together," she said. But the uncertainty in her eyes betrayed the promise in her voice. That night, back at my place, we kissed more urgently than ever before. Touches that were gentle in the winter sunlight became electric in the dark. It wasn't just desire, it was a tether, a silent plea that neither of us could voice. "Stay." But after, lying next to her, I felt the weight of the coming choices pressing down on us. I didn't know if love would be enough. By the time February ended, the distance was clearer. Every time Grace mentioned leaving Maplewood for just a moment, my heart clenched. Every time I tried to hold her closer, I could feel her pulling away, not physically, but in the small things, her lingering glances toward the horizon, the way she hesitated before answering my questions about the future. We were in love. But love alone wasn't enough to fix the divide between two people who wanted different things, and for the first time, I realized the hardest part wasn't staying together. It was knowing that one day, one of us would have to choose. March in Maplewood was unpredictable. One day, the sun warmed the streets and melted the last of the snow. The next, gusts of wind carried sleet that stung like needles. But the thaw brought a kind of magic: two buds on the trees, the smell of wet earth, and the first crocuses daring to peek through the frozen ground. Grace loved spring. She said it reminded her that change was possible, that the world was bigger than it seemed. We started spending afternoons walking the streets of Maplewood like tourists, exploring the corners we'd ignored all winter. The small-town library, the hidden alley behind the bakery, even the abandoned train station at the edge of town. Grace would point out things I'd never noticed: a faded mural, the way sunlight hit the brick just right, or the smell of fresh paint on a community notice board. "You really don't see this, do you?" she asked one afternoon, smiling at me. I shrugged. "Not really. I grew up here." "Exactly," she said, linking her arm with mine. "You need someone to show you the world." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. I let her pull me along. One night in late March, the town held its annual spring fair, a smaller cousin of the county fair, with food stalls, carnival games, and a tiny Ferris wheel. We rode it together, just like the first time, and for a moment, everything felt suspended. Maplewood looked alive, lights twinkling, children's laughter floating through the cool air, couples huddled together. "Promise me something?" she asked when the car reached the top. "What?" I said, already feeling the weight of her voice. "Promise me that if we ever get apart, we don't stop chasing our own dreams." I swallowed. "I promise." She nodded, looking out over the town. "Because I want to try, Ethan. I really do. But I also need more." The words didn't scare me yet. Not fully. But they planted a seed. Spring days also brought more intimate moments: late night drives down country roads, hand-holding along muddy trails, quiet mornings where we brewed coffee and read side by side, and yet, the tension never fully left. Every conversation about the future was like walking on ice over a hidden stream. One wrong step and we'd fall. Then came the day that made everything unavoidable. Grace received a letter in the mail, postmarked from New York. She didn't tell me immediately. She read it alone in her room, pacing back and forth, clutching it like it held her life. When she finally came out, her eyes were unreadable. "I might have an opportunity," she said carefully. "A real one. In New York. They want me to start in June." I felt my chest tighten, my stomach drop. "New York?" She nodded, biting her lip. "It's everything I've been hoping for." "But," she trailed off. "But what?" I asked, though I already knew. "But I don't know what it means for us," she whispered. That night, we sat on the porch swing in silence. The first fireflies of spring blinked around us. "I don't want to leave you," she said finally. "I don't want you to go," I admitted. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining. "Then what do we do?" I didn't have an answer. And deep down, I feared that no answer would be enough. Spring had arrived in Maplewood, beautiful and fragile. So was our love, and just like the season, it was about to change. April came in like a whisper, soft rain drizzling over Maplewood, turning the town's streets into mirrors of the gray sky. The kind of weather that made you want to stay inside, wrapped in blankets, holding someone close. Grace and I tried to do that. Tried to pretend like nothing was changing, but everything was changing. She spent hours on her laptop, researching apartments in Brooklyn, checking out coffee shops she could write in, even scouting small bookstores where she might try to pitch her stories. I watched her from across the kitchen table one evening, the soft glow of the screen on her face, and realized how far ahead she was from me. "You're going to love it," she said, looking up. "The energy, the people, everything." "I know," I said quietly. My voice trailed off. I couldn't finish the thought without it sounding weak. She tilted her head, reading me like she always did. "You don't have to pretend, Ethan. You're scared." I nodded. "Yeah. Scared I'll lose you. Scared I'll never be enough." Her hand covered mine, but the warmth wasn't enough to erase the distance I felt creeping between us. By mid-April, every conversation about the future had become a careful dance. "Do you want to try long distance?" she asked one night, leaning against me on the porch swing. The rain had stopped, and the first hints of stars were visible through the clouds. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. "I can't even imagine Maplewood without you in it every day." "You'd survive," she said softly. "I'd survive. We'd figure it out." I didn't argue, but my chest ached. The last weekend in April, we went to Miller's Creek one final time before she said she'd have to start packing for New York. But we walked the same paths we'd walked all summer and fall, now lined with wildflowers instead of snow or mud. We skipped rocks into the water, our laughter smaller this time, quieter. "Do you ever think we'll be okay?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I don't know," I admitted, my throat tight. I want to believe we will." She looked at me, tears brimming in her eyes. "That's all I want too. But what if believing isn't enough?" We sat in silence, holding hands, listening to the water. I didn't have answers. And she didn't either. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wrote in the journal she gave me, words I hadn't dared to say aloud. April 29, she's leaving. She's going to leave. And there's nothing I can do. Nothing but hold on and hope that love is enough. Even if this town isn't by May. The packing had started. Boxes lined her room, filled with dreams and memories of the past year. Every time I walked past her door, I felt my chest tighten. Every time she smiled at me, I felt the weight of the impending goodbye. We both knew the truth: summer wouldn't be ours. It would belong to the promise of a new life, one that might not include both of us, and for the first time, Maplewood didn't feel like home. May had turned Maplewood golden. The fields along Route 9 were dotted with wildflowers, and the smell of fresh-cut grass carried farther than usual. Summer felt like it was trying to arrive early, but for Ethan and Grace, time was slipping through their fingers. One Friday afternoon, I found her sitting on the porch with her laptop open, surrounded by boxes. Her hair was pulled back, a pencil tucked behind her ear, and she looked distant. "Hey," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, forcing a smile. "Hey. I'm just finishing up some stuff for New York." I walked over and sat beside her. "You're leaving," I said plainly, though I already knew. She bit her lip. "Yeah. Soon." "I don't want you to go," I blurted. The words were heavy, raw, carrying the weight I'd been holding in for weeks. "I know," she whispered. I don't want to either. We sat there, the silence stretching, filled only by the distant hum of traffic and the faint chirping of birds. Later that night, I went over to her house again. Her mom wasn't home, and the living room smelled faintly of packing tape and cardboard. I can't do this, I said as soon as she opened the door. I can't just sit here and let you leave without fighting for us. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Ethan, I've been torn up about this for months. But this opportunity, it's everything I've been working toward. I can't turn it down. Then don't, I said, my voice breaking. But don't leave me wondering if I mattered. Don't leave me thinking our love wasn't real. She stepped closer, and for a moment, I thought she might give in. Stay for us, stay for me. Instead, she shook her head. You know I love you. You know it's real. But Maplewood isn't enough for me. Not anymore. My chest tightened. Then what am I supposed to do? She took my hand, holding it like she was trying to transfer her courage to me. You live. You write. You keep being the person I fell in love with. And maybe someday we'll meet again somewhere we both belong. The next morning, we drove to the train station together. Boxes in the back of her mom's car, luggage in her hands, dreams packed into every piece of her being. We didn't say much on the ride. Words felt useless. When we reached the platform, she turned to me. I'll never forget you, she whispered. Neither will I, I said. We kissed one last time, the kind of kiss that holds a lifetime of memory, warmth, and heartbreak all at once. Then she was gone and the train moved slowly at first, then picked up speed, carrying Grace away from Maplewood, from me, from everything we had, and I stood there on the platform, watching it disappear into the distance, holding the journal she had given me, the words I'd written. Still clutched in my hands. That summer, I kept writing. Pages and pages of memories, of love, of longing. Of hope that maybe, someday, Grace and I would find each other again. Maplewood felt empty without her. But the town was still home, and my life was still mine to live, and in that realization, bitter, painful, yet alive, I understood something. Love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes, it's about letting go. Fall came again to Maplewood, golden and crisp. The town had moved on, as towns always do. Summer faded into quiet streets and shorter days. I had settled into a rhythm, work at the diner, writing in my journal, and walking the old back roads where Grace and I had spent so many evenings. I never expected to see her again. It was a Saturday morning in late October. The smell of rain and damp leaves hung in the air. I was closing up the diner when the door swung open, and there she was, Grace. Standing in the doorway, her hair a little longer, eyes the same green the first remembered, but sharper somehow, like she had changed. But not enough to be a stranger. Ethan, she said softly. I froze. Words failed me. After all those months, letters we never sent, calls we never made, pages I'd written in the journal she had given me, she was here. I didn't think I'd ever see Maplewood again, she said, stepping inside. Grace, what are you doing here? My voice cracked. She smiled, but it wasn't the same carefree smile from the first snow or the Ferris wheel. I came back because I realized something. New York was everything I thought I wanted. But it wasn't me. And it wasn't us. I needed to know if we were real or just a dream I couldn't let go of. I wanted to laugh, cry, scream all at once. And she hesitated. I don't know. That's why I'm here. To find out. For the next few weeks, we walked Maplewood streets again, retracing our old steps, rediscovering what had drawn us together in the first place. It was almost surreal, the pond, the creek, the Ferris wheel, the library, every memory both new and familiar. But then came the twist I hadn't expected. Grace revealed a secret she'd kept the whole time she was in New York. They offered me a job, she said one night, voice low. But it wasn't just writing. It was an entire series contract, for a story about a small town, and the boy who changed everything for me. I stared at her. A story about us? She nodded. And here's the thing, the publisher wants me to move permanently. But I don't want to move. Not without you. So, she smiled nervously. I came back to see if you'd be willing to leave Maplewood with me. I laughed, disbelief and joy mingling. Leave Maplewood? For New York? She reached for my hand. If you want to. We could try, together. And in that moment, I realized something important: love isn't about holding on or letting go. It's about choosing to. I looked around at the streets I had always called home, at the town that shaped me, at the memories that defined my heart. And then I looked at Grace, the one who made me feel alive, who pushed me to dream bigger. I squeezed her hand. Let's go. A week later, we drove out of Maplewood together, the journal in the back seat, a symbol of all we had been through. The town disappeared behind us, small and golden in the autumn sun. Ahead lay uncertainty, adventure, and a chance to write a new chapter, one we'd write side by side, and for the first time, the unknown didn't scare me. It thrilled me, because this time, we weren't letting go.